And it looks like, well, we are and we're not live. Greetings, friends of the apocalypse. This is Jared the Apocalypse Nerd Wallace coming to you from Podcast at Ground Zero, episode 39, the James Ward interview. With me tonight is my stalwart co-host, Adam Baum Glancy, and special guest tonight is game designer and post-apocalyptic gaming legend, James Ward.
Hello, that and a quarter won't get you a bottle of Coke anymore.
Or a bag of it either. But anyway, all right, folks, this... Wow.
Great, we're starting off on a great foot there, Jared. Terrific. Thanks, buddy.
Hey, it's this is how, it's now that we're rolling, it's gonna be chaos. So folks,
right.
This episode is not broadcast live like we usually are, so nobody's hearing us live, but they'll be watching us on the YouTube channel like they normally do. But we had some technical difficulties, folks. That's why you're seeing this later, like everybody else. But no problem. We're getting it to work. The important thing is we wanted to get this going, and we wanted to talk to Jim here. We wanted to prod and poke and find out and get him to reveal all his secrets about himself, or at least as much as he'll reveal. All right, folks, a little bit different format tonight. We kind of got some questions structured, and we're actually going to try to follow along and kind of keep an outline going, which is a little bit unusual for us. But we want to try to, steer things along in a certain path. And, of course, we will ad-lib and ask lots of things like we normally do just to keep Jim on his toes. And Scott shake his head no. He knows that's going to happen, so...
Mr. Wallace, do you mind if we alternate back and forth between questions asked, since we're working from the same list?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'm going to start. I'm going to start with the these questions that we gave him ahead of time, and then we'll add in some of the viewer questions that we've gotten as well. Okay. Now, first thing we want to know, and first things I'm sure some of our viewers want to know because they may or may not know this, is how did you get started in the gaming industry, Jim?
All right. This is one of my favorite stories to tell. The time is June of 1974. Young Jim Ward has just graduated from college, and every Tuesday he would go to the Lake Geneva bookstore because that's when they'd get in their new science fiction and fantasy books. And so there I am picking up my Conan books and my Andre Norton books, and I was just going down the road looking for the new listings, and right beside me is this big biker dude, and he's got a scraggly beard, and he's kind of husky, and I get done with the row, and I have 7 books in my hand, and the guy has the exact 7 books in his hand. So we thought this was very funny, and we got to talking, and he said he had a game where I could play Conan the Barbarian and fight Set. And that guy was named Gary Gygax, and I started playing on his porch every Saturday, learning how to play D&D, and that's how I got started. And Scott finds that delightful.
That beats every how I got started in gaming story ever. I don't care if you were on a plane, it was crashing, and that was then you broke out the red box on the way down. That beats them all.
Yeah, it was pretty strange, wasn't it?
So back then, in the early days, Gary looked like just looked like a biker, huh?
Oh, he looked like a big biker dude with a bandana and blue jeans jacket, and he had a very biker beard, and quite a personable guy. I mean, it was very nice, but he looked a little rough.
Wow.
I didn't think we were going to have a Sons of Anarchy crossover, but all right.
Yeah, really. That's funny. That's very good. Yes, Scott.
Oh my God.
Well, that beats my getting to start a gaming story of I was at my grandmother's house in Tampa, Florida, and me and my 2 cousins played with the neighbor kid at the dining room table. That trumps all of those kind of stories for sure.
There we go.
All right, cool. That's it. So then, so that's how you kind of got introduced to gaming, and then I guess it all kind of rolled from there, Jim. Right? Like, so you got involved with Gary? Then did you start like working with him over time, I guess?
Well, you know, my first working with Gary was I was playing the game with him for about a year, and I said, Gary, you have to do a science fiction version of this. And Gary said, you know, Jim, I don't have the time. Why don't you give it a try? And I was very shocked because he had no idea. I mean, nobody was writing role-playing games in those days. The D&D Brown box set had just come out. And so Metamorphosis Alpha got born by Gary not having the time to write it himself.
Okay. Well, that really answers the next question I had on the list was, you know, what inspired you to create Metamorphosis Alpha? And apparently it was Gary's laziness or lack of time.
There we go. Lack of time is probably better than laziness.
Well, I mean, lazy.
I was very pleased to try it, and it turned out very well. We sold quite a few of them over the years, and now I've got the rights back, and I'm selling the new version even as we speak.
Excellent. Now, if we could roll back to the question of the Metamorphosis Alpha again, was so now we know how it all came about. Now, so questions for me, and I'm sure quite a lot of people have asked the questions and seen some answers. What were some of your influences in creating that world? Like, what influenced?
Oh, I see. Sure. Well, I had D&D to go by, but I wanted to make sure that there wasn't, even in those days, I was thinking about copyright issues. I wanted to make it different enough so that it was his own game. And I'd been reading science fiction for years and years and years. I started with the Hardy Boys and Tom Swift in 5th grade and pretty much read every single science fiction and fantasy book I could get my hands on all through high school and college. So I'd read a lot of science fiction.
Was there any particular books or stories that influenced the setting? Because I know you've alluded to things like the Harlan Ellison stories and
Heinlein's Orphans of the Sky.
Orphans of the Sky.
Well, actually, the one that influenced me the most was a Brian Aldiss book called Starship.
Starship. Yep, I've read that myself.
All right, so that influenced me the most in making my ship and what happened on it.
Now, if I remember, wait, Starship, was that the one where I'm trying to think, is that the one where it winds up being everybody, like the one character moves really slow compared to all the other people in there because of or is that?
No, that's not it. It's a colonization starship that goes out into space, but it winds up going back to Earth. And it took 300 or 400 years to get back to Earth, but everybody didn't realize on the starship that it was a ship. They thought it was a planet. And so they moved around the ship. It came into the solar system, and Earth went to it because they had the technology to do that. And so these giant people started moving around the ship. And the main character is one of the little people that was born on the ship, and he discovers that it's a starship. And in the very end, he activates some weird stuff, and all of the levels split out into coins. They split out into spaceship chunks that the ship comes apart.
Okay. Now, I've read it in a long time, so it's my
wonderful story. Wonderful story. Lots of neat things. So that's how I got the idea of monsters on the ship and radiation doing things on the ship and tech being combined with primitive stuff.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay, well, that would get us into one of the questions. One of our viewers asked a question related to Metamorphosis Alpha. They asked, where would you take Metamorphosis Alpha in the future, or our real world?
Well, it's a great question. I think it's got kind of a weird answer. I'm hoping I answered this properly, but I'm trying to get computer games done on it, and I'm trying to get a live-action show done on it.
Oh, wow.
So that's where I'm going to take it in the real world. But do you mean, like, game-wise, where would I take it?
I think he might be asking, since it's going on 30 years, a little over 30 years later, would your view of technology, how much would your view of modern technology change the way you approached your generation ship, or would you still keep with what? I mean, nowadays we look at it and think of Metamorphosis Alpha and Gamma World as being very retro future. But would you want to keep that retro future, which now is considered classic and awesome, or would you want to adapt it to modern perceptions of what the future is going to be?
Yeah, I guess it all depends on how greedy I am. You want to connect into what people will buy into the most.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely put holodecks on the Starship Warden because that's what the Star Trek kids love, and I definitely put in Star Wars and other kind of connections because that's what the modern day science fiction is. It's still a big story. I mean, certainly in Star Wars, he's grabbing all the legends and myths from the Greeks and the Romans. But for me, I want to keep the nostalgia in there, which I think appeals to people.
Oh yeah, definitely, because the whole movement of the whole the retro clones and all the the old school classic gaming, the dungeon crawl classics that Goodman Game does. So that's it's kind of become popular at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot to be said for retrofuturism. Certainly it's what it's what kept Frank Chadwick's Space 1889 alive until the steampunk crowd rediscovered it, and ruined it. Thank you, Jared. And also I'd also say that things like I think Gamma World was. I don't know if anyone's ever copped to it, but it always felt like the Gamma World retrofuturism was a huge influence on the Fallout game series.
Oh, sure, could be.
From Bethesda.
I know it was an influence on Thundar the Barbarian.
Yes.
Oh, we love Thundar. We did a show a couple of shows ago all about just Thundar the Barbarian.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Thundar was where we got our game ideas for Gamma World. We just went and
there we go.
We ported, when we were 13 or 14, we ported Thundar episodes back into our Gamma World games.
Sure, I can understand that very well.
Absolutely. Now, since we kind of talked about Gamma World a little bit, my next question would be then, because after Metamorphosis Alpha came Gamma World. So what was your inspiration for creating Gamma World, and what were your influences, and your influences in creating it as well?
Sure, we got tonnage of mail from fans into TSR that said they wanted a planet version of Metamorphosis Alpha. They wanted a bigger scale. Basically MA is an adventure in a tin can in a spaceship, and they wanted something planet-wide that was new and different and added to the game system of Metamorphosis Alpha. So that's how Gamma World was born.
Oh wow! So it was just a simple matter of fan demand, just asking for something, huh?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh wow! And then I never knew that. See, now, what were your influence? Now, again, I guess just besides expanding the Metamorphosis Alpha universe onto a planet, were there any other influences for that, like on why you did certain things, maybe in creating the world, or anything like that helped create that different world? Because it's different. It's got similarities, but it's got differences. So what created that differences in making that world?
Sure, no, that's a fair question. And again, I was trying to do something a little bit different from Metamorphosis Alpha. I'd been reading a lot of apocalyptic books about big plagues hitting the earth. Certainly the war, nuclear war, was a big topic all the time, and I'd read a lot of books about that. So what I was trying to do was incorporate the books and the novels and the movies that had come up that showed the big apocalypse and people trying to survive in that time period.
Oh, great. So did you read any books like around that time?
Well, like I Am Legend. Remember that one?
Yep, Richard Matheson.
That had 2 or 3 different movies. The last one I think was, what was that actor who did that last I Am Legend?
Will Smith.
Yes, thank you very much, Will Smith. Well, the first one was a black and white with Vincent Price.
Yep.
And then, of course, there was a Charlton Heston one, which I really loved.
Oh, yeah, we love that one too.
Yeah, so those kind of stories helped me generate the big idea of Gamworld and surviving in a world gone crazy.
Can I ask a related question to that? I was curious. Your apocalypse was actually, to me, up to that point, was and certainly since then, was sort of a unique apocalypse. You created a world that it's hundreds of years in our future. We're expecting Star Trek, in these centuries in the future. And yet, people managed to, all that managed to do was to bring the power of, nuclear weapons down to your local terrorist group, and nerve gas and all these weapons of mass destruction are now available to the sort of the smallest violent political player. And you created an apocalypse of global political terrorism, which I have never seen before, really, or since. And I'm curious, what was your? It felt like your inspirations might have been Lebanon in the '70s, and I'm just curious if where you were going, where sort of those ideas came from, if you have any recollection.
That's a very good question. My partner in crime at that time, Paul PCAGZ, was helping me write this, and he came up with the idea of cryptic alliances, of groups that had their own agenda, and they didn't care how they implemented the agenda as long as it happened. And we just kind of went wild from there. So we definitely didn't have the idea of worldwide terrorist groups, but we did have the idea of clumps of crazies being able to do crazy things to affect their portion of the earth. So one group pops the big ugly bug, the satin bug that kills everybody, and another group pops the atomic missiles that hurt everybody. And so we thought of several different ways that the earth gets destroyed, and we even hinted at aliens doing part of the work as well. So it just all sprang from the idea of the cryptic alliances that are in Gamworld that aren't in Metamorphosis Alpha.
I got to ask this question because everyone wants to know. What's your favorite cryptic alliance? Do you have a favorite cryptic alliance?
No, I love all of my children equally, Scott. Thank you very much for asking that. If I said I favored one alliance, they would be sad for hundreds of years.
Yeah, well, we can't have that.
We can't have that.
They'd tear down the statues of you that they lay their sacrifices in front of.
Exactly.
All right.
Now, again, speaking of Gamworld, the question I had is, because there's been, as you know, several editions. And
yes, there have
been quite a few editions. There's been editions that were created when you were still working with TSR, and then plenty afterwards. What was the last edition that you actually worked on, Jim?
I helped with the first and the second ones, and then didn't do anything after that.
Yes, I smell the difference. Oh no, we're going to be accused of editions wars again, Jared.
Yeah. I've been accused of editions war many a time when I talk about Gamworld, because I've let people know on the podcast that it's my absolute favorite role-playing game ever. It was like the first game I ever really got into. And our show that we did about Gamworld, we got accused of it. It's nothing but edition wars. It's like, no, I'm just telling you what I like. That's all.
Yeah, we can't tell you which one's better. We just tell you the ones that we like.
That's fair. I purposely do not talk about the later ones because I don't feel like bad-mouthing them and my baby. It's like your baby grows up and he goes away to New York and he becomes a drug lord. That's what's happening with my poor baby.
Yeah, well, all we got to say, Jim, is they have not treated your child as well as you did. That's all I got to say about it.
No. Well, that's very true. So we should probably get away from that topic. I'm sure there's other fascinating things you guys have to ask me.
Moving right along.
And actually,
yes, thank you.
Now, even though we consider you the father of apocalyptic gaming by creating Metamorphosis Alpha and Gamma World, you've done more than just those two games, Jim. So
I have.
I know it seems strange that you would do something else, that you would actually move on and do other things, but let's sidestep the apocalyptic stuff for a moment. And why don't you tell us some of your other works besides Metamorphosis Alpha and Gamma World that you've worked on over the years?
Wow, I've been doing this stuff for over 40 years. That's a pretty big list, actually. I have some things I'm very proud of. I'm very proud of the Dragon Ball Z collectible card game. I did the first 7 sets of that game.
Oh, wow.
And it sold great. Yeah, made millions and millions of dollars. So that's pleasing to me. I just finished, as a matter of fact, let me hold it up. Let me see if you can see this.
Okay.
This is called the 77 Lost Worlds. We're trying to get this in sight here. No, it's just not going to happen. It's a box set that it's another apocalyptic world, but it's got a great new story. The partner that I have, Stephen Lee, had a great idea. Let's have mankind settle on 77 different worlds, and then let's have the aliens destroy them all. So what happens is you play in a universe where mankind was doing really well until the aliens put the hammer down on them. And it just came out this last year, and we're just starting to get the word out on it. There's a great website, 77 Lost Worlds, where you can look at the product and order it. But I'm really proud of that because it uses a new kind of game system. I use a deck of cards in 77 Lost Worlds, and when you get a red card, you're happy, and the role-playing goes very well for you. And when you get a black card as you're playing through the deck, you're not happy, and bad things happen to you. So it kind of, the deck of cards not only determines your success or failure, it also sets the mood during the game.
Actually, I have a copy. I haven't packed it away yet, but I have my copy of 77 Lost Worlds in the game closet myself. I think I was one of the first people to order it.
Oh, neat. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate that.
Oh no, I'm always going to support a good-looking post-apocalyptic game, especially something that you've worked on. So yeah. So again, I'll post all this kind of information on the website, get people to see where that stuff is. But yeah.
Oh, thank you very much.
Oh, of course. I'm definitely going to help promote. And because I've actually mentioned the game in previous podcasts as well. So that I got the game in, and I saw you have that new unique mechanic of the playing cards, and that actually eliminates one of the questions on the list because I was going to ask you about 77 Worlds later down the road.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, good.
But,
well, and I've done lots of other things. Of course, I've been working at it for 40 years. The Troll Lord boys have been keeping me very busy. I've done bunches of products with them. One of my favorites is a book called Of Gods and Monsters, which deals with the different historical pantheons. But I try to really incorporate a lot of role-playing. If you're a member of the pantheon, it gives your character special pantheon powers, and we have the gods interested in what you're doing. So the gods will give you quests. So one day you're walking along and you're wondering what you're going to do, and Ares puts his spear down on the ground in front of you, and you walk on, you discover this spear, and you pick it up, and it's amazing because it's a god spear, and you're off on a new quest with that spear being the beginning of the quest. So I try to really work role-playing into the pantheons. I've done several different books like Deities and Demigods where we talk about the pantheons, but I'm really, in these days, I kind of call myself an old-school player because I want to work in the storyline. That's all important for me. I'm currently involved in a partnership with 3 other famous authors, Frank Menser, Tim Kask, and Chris Clark, and we're eldridgeent.com, and the story is king for us. All of our adventures really key in on the story, because I think that's what's missing in modern day products from the big companies, is the storyline and getting involved in the fun of the story. You know, they want to kill the monster, take the monster's treasure, and go find a new monster. And I think role-playing is so much more than that.
Yeah, that it's actually weird that we actually had a step backwards in tabletop role-playing games with the advent of computer games, because computer games could never give you as much variety of story and just became sort of grinds like World of Warcraft. There was this weird thing where, you know, one of those TSR editions of D&D, or rather, I should say Wizards of the Coast editions, is they ripped out the story, and suddenly it was like you're playing a tactical miniatures game rather than with some rewards, rather than being immersed in a story.
Oh, it's not even.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. That's exactly right. They've turned it into miniatures products because they want to sell miniatures figures. Well, that's not what Gary and I started back in the 70s and 80s.
Nothing against miniatures. We're not saying
no, and it's not even just as a tactical miniatures game. It's a tactical miniature game trying to act like a video game as well.
Yes, you're right. I agree with you 100%.
Well, I'm glad we're all on the same page on our dislike for.
Yeah. Well, one of the questions we actually had, Jim, was James was Jim or James?
Jim.
Let's just do Jim.
All right. Somebody actually asked, what is Troll Lords? And I admit I was not familiar with Troll Lord games until this. I ran off to do some research before the interview, but maybe you can explain to some folks. Yeah, maybe you can explain to some folks who may not know what Troll Lord Games is and what kind of products you got.
Okay, let's try this. Let's see if I can make this work. Troll Lord Games makes wonderful role-playing products, and it's Castles and Crusades is the game line. Troll Lords has their own website. They just make wonderful things. Gary and Steve Chenault got working early and came up with this Castles and Crusades idea, which is very much like, well, I don't know if I should say it's like AD&D First Edition, but it is like AD&D First Edition. Go ahead, Scott.
I was going to say, you would not be the first people who, in the business who did well in the market because you went back to first principles. Rather than...
Well, I think that's what Steve's doing. He's going back to first principles, and they produce a lot of product, and I think they're all high-quality products. But, Troll Lords, they have their own website. You can certainly look them up, and I think you'll find a lot of neat stuff going on there. And I've written lots and lots of things for them. I've written a horror game for them. I've written, actually, let me pull this out. Let me see if I can get this up there. This is what's going to be my claim to fame 100 years from now. This is called the Storyteller's Thesaurus. And what this is a word book for writers, but we've done something very different in our thesaurus. In the other thesauruses, you look up a word, and it shows you 5 or 6 other words that mean the same thing. In the Storyteller's Thesaurus, you look up something like castle, and it sends you to a section that talks about castles and their parts and what they were used for. So it's much more of an idea-generating book. Just the other day, I was writing an adventure, and I put in the phrase arbalast. And it didn't sound right to me when I put it in there, so I went to my Storyteller's Thesaurus, and I looked up the word arbalast, and come to find out I didn't want arbalast, I wanted ballista. And so that's what that book helped me discover. And I think that because it's such a unique thesaurus, I think it's going to be around a couple 100 years from now. So I'm really proud of that product.
That sounds like a really good tool there for game designers and writers. Absolutely.
Oh, that's what we're hoping. That's what we're hoping for. That the writers will really want to pick it up. We've got rave reviews from the people who have bought it so far online and use the online version. But when I'm writing, I find I use that thing 5 or 6 different times during a project, looking up special terms and concepts. So that's the Troll Lord, boys. And I know, Jared, that you have the Goodman Games product there. Could you show everybody your hardbound book, sir?
Oh, let me hold on a second. Let me get my back brace so I can lift it off the floor, okay?
I have told people they can use the book for shelving.
Or to stop a bullet.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so I've actually showed this on the podcast before. Is the giant? Well, that'll lead us into my next question was when I'll show this and then we'll talk about. I wanted to know was how the very successful Metamorphosis Alpha Kickstarter started, how it came about.
Sure.
So here is the big. This is just the box. You know, as it may seem that look, it's bigger than my head, and inside the box, as we know, is a very giant book, very thick book, tons and tons and tons of content in here, magazine articles, interviews, histories, revisions, giant book, thick quality paper that it's printed on. The thing is amazing. And then recently. Just like Jim, I got my box of supplemental goodies because this Kickstarter was just filled with goodness. It was like
is that an original printing in there as well, or not an original?
No, that's the that is the Game Master screen. I have a giant poster in here, modules, handouts.
Hey Jared, would you do me a favor and pull out that poster?
Oh, sure.
Here's a funny little story. So I'm opening my box for the first time and seeing all these goodies, and I was really pleased. And I saw that white piece of paper at the bottom of the box, and I didn't think anything of it. I thought it was like, you know, a protective paper or something. So like weeks later, I'm opening the box to look through the material, and it happens to fall out of the box, and I realize that it's a wonderful poster of the inside of the guts of this ship. It's just an amazing piece.
I'm gonna have to stand back so everybody can see this. So hold on. And yeah, Goodman Games for this Kickstarter project, they just kept giving and giving. Let me tell you, it is the best $80 I've ever spent. I got so much stuff. Right here is.
Oh, that's nice.
Here's the
Holy
poster.
shit!
All right.
Isn't that thing amazing? It's just high quality wonderfulness. The artist that did that did all the covers as well on all the other books, and it's just astounding.
Yeah, this thing is gigantic. We're moving soon. I'm going to see if I could see if my wife will let me find some space so I can hang this up at least in my office. So.
Oh, there we go. There we go. So what happened was, I think it's about a year and a half ago now. Joseph Goodman of Goodman Games, I'd seen him around conventions and things. He gives me a call and says, Jim, we'd really like to do Metamorphosis Alpha. And I kind of laughed at that, and I told him, Joseph, I'm already doing Metamorphosis Alpha. And he says, no, Jim. We want to do a high-quality, museum-quality book that has everything that's ever been done about Metamorphosis Alpha. And I was kind of amazed. At first, I didn't think anybody would want it. But he talked me into it, and we started work on things. And we did it as a Kickstarter. And I'm very happy to say that he liked all of my Kickstarter ideas. Very early on, we discovered that the fans who were going to buy into this wanted a lot of printed material. And so, yes, that's the armband. In Metamorphosis Alpha, every single person that was on the ship in the beginning was given an armband, and there's different colors. There's that was the white medical band that we saw, and there's a brown band for just a normal citizen, and there's red and blue bands for security, and they're communication devices, and they're things that you really want to get a hold of. So that was one of the Kickstarter stretch goals. And it's really funny because everybody's saying that they really hope that they didn't get sent a brown band. Nobody wanted the plain citizen band. They all wanted the good colors,
of
which
course.
I thought was very amusing. Yeah. But so we did a lot of different Kickstarter ideas, and people were happy about it, and Joseph really liked the way it all turned out, and of course the product is coming out now. Most of it's been shipped, but the international people all got everything last, and which doesn't make them happy, but at least they're getting it. And it turned out to be a tremendous Kickstarter, and I was very happy with the result.
Oh, I was very happy to give the money and get all the really good products. Now, actually, here's a quick question for you. Let's do a little cross reference here.
A quick question, Jared?
Yeah,
Come on.
Well, for me, now we showed the medical band, which were the identification bands on the Starship Warden. Now, were these the inspiration or the predecessor to the ID cards that we saw in Gamma World? All the colored cards?
Yes, absolutely. We wanted to do something different, so we went to cards in Gamma World. But yeah, it's kind of a key. It's an all-purpose tool. It opens doors. It clues in robots that you shouldn't be killed instantly.
Excellent. Now,
I gotta hold on. I gotta throw this out. The one thing that I always remember, always sticks in my head about Gamma World, was that one random encounter in the back of the book where it's a combat cyborg or something that has gotten a programming chip in it for housekeeping.
Yeah.
And it's wandering around. There's like you're going through a ruined city, and there's one block that's perfectly clean. And it's just this one robot that's going around with like the programming of Hazel or whatever the name of the cleaning robot from the Jetsons was, and is keeping the one block clean. That always stuck in my head as one of the most inspired, off the wall post-apocalyptic moments.
Thank you very much, sir. I have my moments. Yeah.
Thank you. That one was that. And when I sprung it on my players, it always, every time I used it on a new group of players, and they were always completely freaked out, not by the death machine shooting at them, but by it puttering around and talking in this sort of like, Mrs. Doubtfire voice and sweeping up all the rubble and, putting paint back on the buildings and straightening things. That always creeped them out more than anything else.
Sure, I quite understand. Yep. Now, my favorite thing in Gamma World, of course, is the radiation and the mutating of people. I took a lot of heat in the early days. Everybody wanted to tell me that radiation just doesn't do that. And I knew radiation didn't do that, but I didn't care. My radiation is kind of a lot like red kryptonite for a certain other fellow that will go unnamed, in that it changes you, and but mine changes you permanently, of course. And people love mutations. They love getting them. They love trying to deal with them when they're not too good. And so I think that was another highlight of the game in the way that works and the powers that you get from being a mutant.
Everybody loved the randomness. The randomness of that table was one of the key ingredients for me. Was it could just go any which direction, and then there was this struggle as it being creative, trying to find a way to integrate these completely contradictory mutations together into your character, and then that would help develop your character concept.
Yes, exactly. The most fun for me is when a pure strain human becomes a mutant, and then he loses all of his fantastic bennies for being a pure strain human.
Which reminds me, there was somebody had asked about cliches in sort of post-apocalyptic worlds, and I guess the super mutant, the mutant with superpowers, I guess, is one of the classic cliches of post-apocalyptic fiction. And I was, his question, the question was, what for you are the most sort of the cliches that never get tired, that are always the kind of things that are good to use in your players? And do you have any cliches you think that have just been done to death and you will be happy to skip that in a post-apocalyptic setting?
Yeah, well, I think I have two of those for you. First of all, there's a mutation called life leech. And what happens is, in an area around the mutant, all life, their hit points are leached into the mutant. And that used to be considered the most powerful power of all the mutations, in that you could get several hundred hit points, and they last for 24 hours. And when I would play the game on the player's side, that would always be one of the things that I would pick up on and use. And it worked really good until some of the other people at TSR decided that there should be a thing called anti-life leech paint. Yeah, exactly. So I would come up to life leech a thing, and it would have this paint on it, and my life leech wouldn't work, and they'd kill me.
Was this a low-tech thing? Was this like something that the tribals realized that they needed?
Yeah, no, this was from one of those stupid cryptic alliances with lots of technology.
Okay.
That are never good. Yeah, that are never good. Yeah. And the other thing, of course, was the singing vine. I love the singing vine. It's a great big plant. You come up to it, you want to eat it, you want to kill it, and it starts singing, and you learn to love it. And you learn to want to fertilize it, and you learn to want to take care of it, and you learn that it's the most important thing in the world. And I think I used it just a few too many times because Gary started killing all the plants in the area with the chance that a singing vine might come into the area. So in all of his villages, they were desolate. No trees, no shrubs, no anything. So the singing vines couldn't hurt them.
And that's
now just imagine, if you will, my good friend Gary Gygax running out of the room that we were playing in with his fingers in his ears going na 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 na, so he couldn't hear the singing vine.
That really takes all the dignity that we imagined Mr. Gygax had out the window. Now it's just Gary with his fingers
in his leather.
I know.
In his leather jacket and his
Yeah, and his do-rag. Yeah.
And his do-rag.
My best Gary Gamworld story is he's playing in the game and he finds this great big medical center, and he finds the artificial intelligence that deals out all the supplies, and he says, I really want a drug that'll make me super strong and really smart. And so the artificial intelligence says to him, how many metric tons would you like? I will never forget the expression on Gary's face. Metric tons? His eyes get real big. His mouth goes into a big O. It was a wonderful moment in gaming.
Now, that had to be a trap. Tell me that was a trap.
No, he got metric tons on pallets.
Oh, my God.
He had no way to carry the pallets out of the hospital. He had to settle for just taking a container, but he really wanted the whole pallet worth.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's a classic player character moment where it's like, how are we getting the dragon's trove out of this cave when all we have are a few sacks? Did anyone remember to bring bags? I mean,
yeah, really.
Oh my God.
Now back to the when you were talking about radiation, Jim. You were saying that everybody was giving you a hard time how your radiation mutated people, but you had to look. It's like, well, yeah, we like you're right. We know that, but it's a game. It's that retro future because back then, like early on, people had this misconception that radiation would mutate people, right?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly right. That's where I got the idea.
Yeah, and that's it works great for the game, because it's it just fits beautifully,
Yeah, I mean, what fun would them be if all the radiation did to the ants was make them have 5 legs instead of 6, and maybe the hive can't operate properly or the queens are born sterile. Who cares about that? I want giant ants threatening.
Yes, exactly right. I quite agree.
Yeah.
Now, Jim, let me ask you a question about the 77 Lost Worlds. Now, you use a deck of cards as a mechanic. Now, is there any plans to maybe produce a special Lost Worlds deck of cards? That are like.
Well, of course, we're going to actually show everybody that deck in March at GaryCon.
Oh, excellent. I was wondering, it's like, yeah, you got to produce a nice special deck with mutations or something, very post-apocalyptic to use for the game. That would be excellent.
I quite agree. No, that is an idea that we had. The only thing that slowed it up was getting the 52 pieces of fun art.
Oh, excellent.
That's expensive. Jared and I both know that when it comes to commissioning art, 52 individual pieces that's a monster.
Yes, it is.
All right, cool. So let's see here. I'm just trying to look at some of these other questions from some of the fans. Somebody asked,
you got a couple too, don't you?
Yeah, I got a couple. Somebody asked what would you do differently if you were to launch Gamma World for the first time today? Like right now, you're making Gamma World right now. What would you do? What would you do differently?
Okay, that's an excellent question, and really the 77 Lost Worlds is the way that I would have done it. So what I want to do is I want to diversify the product and get as many people interested as possible. So a novel would come out, an anthology of short stories would come out, the website would have the ability to generate characters so that you could print out your character off your computer and off the website. So I would work up as many different ways to interest the people as possible in the game, and then I'd hit the convention circuit with it. So I'm going to like 5 conventions this year, and at every single one I'm running a 77 Lost Worlds game. And so again, diversifying is the key. It's kind of, and I don't like mentioning the big boys, but when TSR went away, they kind of lost that. They got rid of all the big campaign worlds and kind of narrowed it down to just the game. And I think that they lost a lot when they did that. When the Ravenloft went away and when the Al-Qadim went away. So what I would do is I'd push the storyline in Gamma World again. We'd get miniatures going. We'd get plush toys going. We'd get card games and board games going, all in the same year that the role-playing game came out.
You could sell Jared a plush death machine. No problem.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh,
there we go.
In a hot second.
Yeah, that's one sale immediately if you can get that.
Now Grenadier made a wonderful death machine miniature.
Yep. I have a lot of the original Grenadier miniatures still on the blister pack in my closet. I have about 23 or 4 of the original 52.
Oh, they go for big money these days.
I paid some big money for some of those.
Mr. Wallace, do you want to actually drop the number you suspect that 25 miniatures has set you back?
Probably over again, I did this over years, many years. Maybe it probably costs I'd say maybe in the 1,100 range.
Yeah.
I've seen that death machine go for $400, unpainted.
I wish I had one of those. So essentially, then you answered your question. So essentially, 77 Lost Worlds is your new Gamma World.
It's
kind of, sort of.
Yeah, it's a new role-playing product that I would like to get out there. And Steven, my partner in crime on that one, is just, I think he's doing everything right. We have a great website. We have we have little adventures being given away free on the website. We have the box set, and now we're going to work on a hardbound advanced set that's going to come out this year. And I think the storyline that he created is just excellent because of what it brings you. It brings you high adventure. What happened to those 77 worlds? You start out on the moon in a dome, in a tourist dome, and you have to get from the moon to the blasted Earth, and then you have to get from the blasted Earth out to the 77 worlds to see what the aliens did to each of those worlds. So we had that all mapped out. That took me forever to do. But,
well, 70. It's hard enough building one world, or rather setting up one world apocalypse. But you're talking about 77 different worlds where you had to come up with 77 different places, and then you had to wreck them. And I'm presuming you wreck them in different ways, so that not every one of them is wrecked in the same manner. One place.
No, I had to do 77 completely different worlds. Oftentimes, I wished he would have called his game the 33 Lost Worlds.
No, I get that. I get that. That's an enormous amount of source.
It took me forever to get to 77, but I finally did, so I'm happy with that.
Woo!
Very cool. Now, I'm going to give us one more viewer question, which was, what is your most and least favorite thing about Gamma World?
My most and least favorite thing. That's a great question. My most and least favorite thing. I really like the weapons that I did in Gamma World, because most of them exist today.
Yeah.
You know, the death rays and the laser pistols and all of those. So I did a good job of guessing what was going to happen. I just guessed it not soon enough.
my favorite weapon is the fusion rifle.
Oh, of course. What a marvelous weapon, huh? It leaves radiation wherever you shoot it.
I'm surprised, Jared, you didn't go with the vibroblade as your favorite weapon. I was expecting.
I just like the idea of strapping on this giant backpack of radiation and just spewing it all over the place. You know.
Yes, exactly. You know, I'm working on a Troll Lord product right now. It's a book of spells, and in the book of spells, what are you holding up? You're holding up the figure out charts.
Yeah. Speaking of favorite things in Gamma World.
Oh, they are fun. Let me get back to that. There's this. I'm working on this book of spells for the Troll Lord Games boys, and in the book of spells, you have the ability to summon these new kinds of dragons. There's a cloud dragon. There's a lightning dragon, and it sounds great. You summon them. They do one combat for you, or they do one task for you, and then they go away. But you don't figure out until later that they go away all right, but they go away to make their own dens in your campaign world, so that later on you're fighting those creatures that you summoned to help you out. I think people are going to really appreciate that. So I think the worst thing in Gamma World, early on, other authors that did support product went for the laughs instead of the seriousness. And I think the reputation it was too comedic, which I think hurt sales after a while.
I agree. A lot of people think that it's very wahoo, the term they use, very too tongue-in-cheek, and I could totally see that, Jim. But when I played my game, we tried to take a little more, quote-unquote, serious slant to it. We didn't just do as much as the over-the-top goofiness that was built into it later on,
Yeah, I do know. I try, you want laughs. I mean, Shakespeare wanted laughs in his tragedies.
Oh,
and so I want the same thing, but, I don't want, like, silliness all over the place, everywhere you look.
Yeah, there's an author who writes about, bad gaming experiences, and he does this. Al Bruno III. Can we tell the story, Jared? We can name drop Al Bruno III.
Yeah. Let's do that because we're getting close to an hour here. So I want to try to get a few more questions in and get Jim wrapped up here in a little
But
shortly.
Mr. Bruno wrote these stories online about these sort of terrible gaming experiences, and there's actually some places online you can go to hear people who've taken his stories and turned them into scripts and turned them into like radio plays of bad gaming. And as you listen to them, there's always something for everyone what you've experienced in your gaming career as a bad experience. And one of them was the Gamma World game where somebody gets multiple limb and decides to create his new character, the Coctopus.
Oh, jeez.
And it's just like, yeah, I think we've all been there and had that horrible moment where it's like, yeah, that's not how okay, never mind, player agency, go ahead. Be the Coctopus.
Yeah, really.
Wait till you get to this. Wait till you get to the desert made out of broken glass. Okay, that's what I say about that. But anyways, yeah, I just wanted to throw out. There's always that thing where people always latched on to the most ridiculous elements, and just played it for laughs. We never did. We always played it pretty straight.
I'm glad to hear that.
When we were kids, and certainly going back to it, if we went back to it, it would end up looking a lot like Fallout, and there'd be some humor, but it's still pretty grimmo. Definitely. When I held up the artifact chart, one of the last questions from a viewer was, did you have any? Did you possibly have a favorite story about when players ran into a mundane object or situation that they misunderstood and got completely wrong, and is still sort of one of your favorite moments of botching the figure-out table in Gamma World, or just encountering an object that they could not figure it out despite the fact that it was a phone or a hair iron or something,
Sure. Now, this one, Jared, you might want to, like delete the whole thing after I'm done. We'll have to see.
Oh no, but, we don't edit, Jim. Don't worry.
Yeah, right. So the adventurers are in a desert, very dry. They've run out of water. They're in big trouble. They find this complex, and they get in there, and they start fooling with stuff, and they get to this weird room, and they start trying to figure out these devices against the wall, and suddenly they spurt tons of water. And they go, ho-ho, we're saved, everything's great. And they fill up all their containers, and they fill up, everything they can, and they drink deeply and heavily because they figured out how to work this great big white fountain, this long white fountain with a drain at the bottom, and these weird smelly tablets by the drain bottom. Come to find out that they've discovered how to work urinals in the bathroom. Yeah.
That's some good water, huh?
That's a good game, and I'll tell you, I smiled all the way home. Jim? Did you ever run across a book, an illustrated book called was it the Motel of Mysteries?
Yes.
Did you ever? Does that ring any bells to you, Mr. Jim?
It sounds familiar. Is it like a pick-a-path book?
Well, it was like an illustrations from an archaeological dig where they had a thing where 1980s, 1970s civilization has collapsed. We are now in the future, and they're talking about digging out this old motel like it's King Tut's tomb. And there's a big section about how they think that the toilet seat is a headdress. They're misinterpreting all the stuff in the hotel to mean different things. They think it's a series of burial chambers. Like,
wow.
Yeah.
Do you think I can still buy it on Amazon?
I hope so. I would not be surprised if it's Motel of Mysteries, right, Jared?
I believe that's what it's called. I would go in the other room and grab it off the shelf, but it's packed away already. So
that excuse is getting pretty old, Jared. I don't know.
It is.
He doesn't really have any of these things. He's just lying.
Yeah, I hear you.
I'm a big phony, folks. You've got my secret. But
so, Jared, more questions from you.
Oh yeah. Well, actually, I got a couple quick questions. Well, they never quick. I always say quick questions. I'm such a liar. I was talking with kind of Jim through chat a couple days ago because he watched our Gamma World episode, and remember in that episode, Scott, I was relaying the story of Fear is Good, the article by Roger Moore, how he gave the story about he had the players have gods go up against a couple of death machines just to kind of drive home the fact that Gamma World is deadly. Now, in that article, Jim, he had said something that he kind of was. I think he said he was kind of influenced to create that situation from playing with you.
Sure.
So, how did that? Do you think is there anything you could elaborate on that a little bit? Like, why would he come up with something like that, Jim? Why would he?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm with you on this. And basically, it has something to do with how Gary Gygax taught me how to play the game. He never coddled his players. You made a bonehead mistake, you died. And so that's always the attitude I have had. And what I've taken to do at conventions is at the beginning of the event, I always warn everybody that my games, my adventures are deadly. And if you manage to survive all the way to the end, you have actually accomplished a feat of skill that not a lot of people can do. I generally, I would say probably, and this makes me very sad, but I would say 75% of the time I get total party kills at the events. Because people they rush into things. I tell them in the beginning of the game, don't rush into that doorway. Check it out. And invariably, they'll rush into a doorway. The monsters on either side of the door will grab them and eat them, and all the rest of the party will continue to rush in the doorway.
Wow.
So, I tell them it's a deadly environment, and you have to be careful. And if they aren't, and they rarely are at conventions, people just don't have a love for their characters at conventions. So they don't care if they get killed. They don't care if they get wounded. They don't care if acid gets thrown all over their bodies. They just don't care. Well, I mean, I've had people die in 4 seconds in my game.
Wow, you are a killer DM, Jim.
No,
he's just I rail against it. I do. I try to tell them I don't like killing people, but they just die because the big companies don't want you to kill the characters. So they're very specific in their rules and their sets. DM, don't you go killing your players because that'll make them very sad. Well, nuts to that. The feeling of fear and urgency is the fun thing about it. I mean, I've been in tons of games with Gary, and I was afraid for my character every single minute. And that was part of the fun.
You know, I write for Call of Cthulhu, which is still the game that has the reputation for being no fun because it, kills the characters, or you run out of sanity points or whatever. And even so, as deadly as that game is, I don't try to kill players. You don't have to. The mechanics are just so deadly that they can kill themselves.
That's what I say.
Yeah.
Judges shouldn't kill players. Players kill players.
Yeah, and I'm certainly not going to rescue them if they've messed up. You just got to let the chips fall where they may. A guy rolls a fumble on his he fumbles his demolition roll while he's planning an explosive. I'm like, well, roll a second percentage dice to see how bad your malfunction is, and he gets another critical fail on a roll, and I'm like, I don't know what to tell you.
Right, exactly right. So my thought is, if you warn him at the beginning, then you've done everything you can do.
Yeah. It's just, you think this is a problem where this generation just never went through Tomb of Horrors?
Yeah, no, I think it's because the big boys are teaching them not the best way to play a game.
I agree that there is a soft sell.
Well, it probably stems from the whole thing about how everybody graduates from every grade now, and when you have kids with their soccer matches, both teams win, nobody's a loser, because we don't want people to
I
have
know.
we don't want people to have bad feelings. We don't want people to, I don't know, but
I don't want my players to die while playing. I want them to win, but I also want them to feel like they goddamn accomplished something.
they earned it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want them to get to the other end and go, oh yeah, we 2 hit points, motherfucker. I made it.
I know just what you mean.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Jim, for it. So now we know why Roger Moore wanted to instill that fear into his folks, to let them know that, hey, man, just don't, Now, you already kind of answered one of our other questions. You did give us a pretty good rundown on some of the other things that you are currently working on with the Castle and Crusaders, or the Troll Lord, 77 Worlds. I want to kind of bring us to a close here. And I did want to ask this question, and you did say we're okay with this one, was is there any chance in the world, do you think, that you would ever be able to get your rights back to your Gamma World game?
Unfortunately for me, Hollywood is knocking on the Wizards' door. They keep talking about a live-action Gamma World thing, which would be tremendous. I mean, I would love it. But it's just talk. So as long as Hollywood's knocking on that door, I'm never getting it back. Plus, I'm not a rich guy, so if they wanted, Jim, sure, we'll give it back. Just give it $98,000. Uh-oh. My telephone battery is signaling that it's almost dead.
Then that must be our last question. Then we've arrived at the end.
I'm sorry. I can be disconnected at any second.
All right. Well, then we'll try to wrap it up. Then, okay. So now we know that Hollywood is teasing Wizards of the Coast with making a movie, which would be awesome if it was done right. But of course, we know that that they wouldn't do it right. So maybe it's good that they don't ever do it. Well, if there's ever anything we could ever do to help you with this effort, even if it's helping if you get some kind of fundraiser, if we needed money for it, we would always be there to help, because I would
soon as we win the lottery.
Yeah, that's
cool. Yeah, I appreciate that. There might be a Kickstarter for an MA computer game. I'll have you guys help me with that.
Oh, absolutely. Anything we could do for that. So
we'll spread the word on a Metamorphosis Alpha computer game. Yes, please.
Absolutely.
That would be fun. I would enjoy it too.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's we'll kind of wrap it up here. Do you have any last words that you would like to share with the folks, Jim, before we go?
Well, it's just I still love the players, and I love playing the game and writing the game. So I'm going to continue that as long as I can.
Excellent. Well, we're definitely back here to support you, to help keep you going. And what we'll do is, once I get everything all settled up and we'll get this posted, I'm going to put some links to all the different things that we talked about. I'll get all that up there. I might not get it done tonight, but I will get them up there, and I'll continue to spread the word about all your good products, all the things you're working on, and that's really it. But again, Jim, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for putting up with the problems we had, but we made it work. And you're a real trooper for putting up with us and sticking through this to make this happen. We really appreciate it.
I hope it does work. We'll have to see.
Oh no, we'll get this recorded. I'll get it saved. I'll get it uploaded, and I'll share the link so people could watch it. So, all right, folks. So that was Mr. James M. Ward with us tonight. Adam Baum Glancy. And this is Jared the Apocalypse Nerd Wallace for Podcast at Ground Zero, episode 39. Now, normally we do a show in about 2 weeks, but that may get delayed because I'm going to be moving that week, so I might not be able to do it. But I'll keep everybody informed about when the next show is going to be and what it's going to be about. And that's all we got for this week, folks. So again, this is Jared, Jim, and Scott saying goodnight from the Wastelands. Thank you and good night.
All right. Thanks, guys.